Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Well, here we are once again. We're in an interview with a normal person.
Which you know is one of our favorite things.
This is a very interesting one. I believe that I'm going to feel I don't know if I'm going to feel, I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet. I don't know if I'm going to feel old or if I'm going to feel understood, because I think Caela also feels old, even though she's still in college. And I mean, I don't want to offend anyone out there, but I think that if you're 21, you're a Gen Zer. You're not a millennial. I can't accept you into my group.
You might be on the cusp.
Maybe. But you don't remember not having the internet. And to me, if you're a real millennial, that you have memories of not having the internet.
Of getting the internet.
Of getting your first, getting the internet, getting your first phone. Like, you grew up in a world where, like, tablets were normal and phones were normal and hardly any memories pre-iPhone. So, like,
yeah, that seems like
to me, that seems like a different generation.
But I don't know what Caela identifies as.
I could just be a very, crusty old woman saying that right now.
I've never asked her which generation she identifies with.
I don't mean to gatekeep anyone from my generation, but I just, that's how I feel. Caela can correct me if she thinks I'm being prejudiced right now. So, okay, do you want me to read her bio?
Yes.
An old soul in the body of a 21-year-old, Caela is a third-year university student who loves nothing more than a cinnamon-sprinkled cappuccino and intimate conversation. The transition to college was rocky, but afforded ample time to get to the bottom of self-limiting beliefs and starting down a path that encompassed her values. After 10 major changes, settling on French studies, study abroad, solo travel, Brené Brown TED Talks, and a little help from Clarity on Fire, joining the working world now seems a lot less overwhelming. Feeling not quite satisfied with her formal education, Caela leaned into her entrepreneurial spirit and recently co-founded Dear Curiosity, a personalized travel itinerary planning business, and is beginning coursework for her professional coaching certification in November. Shout out to IPEC, where Kristen and I went.
Do you know what? She's actually starting it on the day this is airing.
Oh,
isn't that's
crazy? Very interesting. She is an INTJ, Firestarter, Enneagram Type 1, highly sensitive, ambitious young woman. Caela understands the struggle of feeling a bit like an outsider. But finding the courage to practice vulnerability and give herself permission to just be has revitalized her life in the most unexpected ways. She's, like, not an overachiever or anything.
Caela is self-identified Type A personality, which I think a lot of us relate to.
Firestarter plus Type 1 plus INTJ. Yeah, that's an overachieving, very structured, control freak type mind. I can see that.
Yep. And we get into the control freak nature that I think secretly all of us have to some extent, because we all want all the answers.
And how control is just about, like, being too afraid to let go.
Yep.
And we're all a little bit afraid to let go.
Yep. And she's done a lot of work around that in our coaching time together. And she shares about that. And also the ambitions side of it. We talked about ambitiousness. And
I think that's just called ambition.
Yep.
Wow, your brain is functioning real good today.
It sure is.
Real well. I think we just need to call it. Let's listen to Caela, please.
Let's listen to Caela. Hi, Caela.
Hi, Kristen.
I am so excited to have you on the podcast.
I am too. Oh my gosh. So excited.
So you are officially the youngest podcast guest we've ever had.
Wow. Achievement check.
Which is funny considering the conversation we're going to have.
True. But, age is just a number. It doesn't matter.
Well, and I love it because I know people are going to be blown away by how well I was going to say how wise you are for your age, but honestly, I think you're just wise, period. But especially for being in your early 20s and still in college, I just know most people who are listening to this are going to be like, I wasn't thinking about any of this stuff when I was 21. So they're going to be blown away. There are so many topics that you and I could have talked about.
We have talked about so many topics.
But what I want to get into today is something I know you've done a lot of work around. Mm-hmm. And I know it's something that a lot of people in general struggle with, which is wanting to have all the answers, which we know is just kind of a desire for control and certainty, and that's normal. Everyone has it. And you've also done a lot of work around reframing achievement, too.
Yes.
So I want to get into all of this. Mm-hmm. So we can just start back. Let's just go historically in your life. How has this need for control or just like this desire to want to have all the answers ahead of time, how has that played in your life?
Very poorly, I would say. Yes. So also I would like to give a preface to this question and the rest of these questions that I am 100% still working on this. I do not have it all figured out or anything, but
as we all are.
Yes, historically speaking, as a type A personality and very organized, I like to be in control. I don't necessarily like being a follower per se. Like I want to know what I'm doing ahead of time. But when you kind of expand that into life things, especially things in the future, you can't do that at all, which I found out very quickly upon entering college that, oh my gosh, I don't actually control anything. And the things that I thought that I did control, I actually didn't, which was a whirlwind to try and reorient myself to. But wanting to have all the answers, I don't know. There's something very attractive about it. And there's something very attractive about people that seem like they do have all the answers, which is an interesting thing that I came to realize the other day. But typically the whole like stress and anxiety about needing to have control builds really quickly when you start thinking about all the things that you can't control when you're not okay with it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. When you really, really want to have control, but you also are recognizing just how little control you really have, it's kind of terrifying.
And it's also, unfortunately, the first step, I feel like, to kind of moving past that. Because, I mean, awareness is the first step of any kind of knowledge gaining. But for me, especially freshman year and kind of into sophomore year, it was just like I could very quickly go down this downward spiral of overthinking and pessimism and just like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything together and I don't know what I'm doing. And unfortunately for college, I feel like there's this perception that, okay, it's going to be the best time of your life and you're going to have all of these great new experiences. And also we're going to kind of treat you like an adult, but really you're still going to be viewed as a kid. But once those 4 years are up, or 5 years for some people, or even longer, like, then it's like immediate, okay, real world, time to get your act together. Yep. And I've always been very cognizant of deadlines, and that really didn't help because it was like, oh my gosh, there is an approaching end to this like race to nowhere. And it was incredibly overwhelming, and it still can be, but I feel like I've kind of adapted myself a little bit better to it.
Yeah, you're like, I know I'm going to have all this together and enter the real world quite soon. That's approaching. And holy crap, what do I do now to try to kind of control the situation or control myself or what I need to do to get there when I really feel like I should be just having the best time and enjoying my time here in college. And you're like, how do I square these two things?
Right. And the answer is you can't unless you're just one of those rare birds. So like pulling from one of your other podcasts or blog articles, I'm a hummingbird. 110%. I am not a jackhammer. But those people that are jackhammers, for
people who are like, what are you talking about?
Yes. Multi-interested. Like I have very many things that interest me and directions. And I was actually just talking about this with a friend that there is this whole idea of, oh, well, just follow your passion. As if human beings have one passion and that they can all turn that one passion into a self-sustaining form of gaining money.
Maybe like 2% of all humans.
Right. But unfortunately, like those are often the stories that permeate everything else. It's just like, oh, well, this person went from A to B to C and now they're here. But that is not how I think the majority of people are operating on this planet.
Yeah, so of course you wanted to find that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Until you finally recognized, I think I'm a hummingbird.
Yes.
Which means I'm multi-passionate, which means there isn't this one lightning bolt moment of clarity about the thing I'm supposed to do until the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard, because wouldn't that be so nice in terms, especially when we're talking about wanting to have all the answers? Wouldn't that be so nice to just have one thing that you know for sure you're supposed to be doing as your career forever?
Oh, it would be delightful. many nights in torment over the fact that I knew that I wasn't one of those people. And it was incredibly frustrating, especially as somebody who likes to be in control of things.
Right.
It was just like having that little like nugget of knowledge about things that you didn't necessarily want to know, but now you know and you can't not know it. That's exactly what that felt like.
Yeah.
And still can feel like that. But yes.
And so recognizing I'm a multi-passionate hummingbird, which means I don't know where my career is going to go. I don't know where my life is going to go, because I'm going to probably be flitting from one thing to another thing, to various interests, to letting things unfold how they're going to unfold, and how scary.
And as a fire starter, as somebody who wants to dip my toes into entrepreneurship, that's even more terrifying, because there's no mass plan of how to succeed as an entrepreneur that works all the time, especially in today's world. And I could go off on that, digital technology and startups and all that jazz. But like, oh my gosh, that is terrifying too, because it's this, overwhelming feeling of like, okay, I know that I kind of want this idea of a life, or like what I want my life to look like, but there is no path. There's no outline. There's no color coded, perfectly tailored plan of how to get there. And it was kind of a realization over the past few months that I have got to let go of that plan, because anytime that I've decided to like release myself a little bit and just kind of take a step back and not obsess over anything and let things happen, really cool things have happened to me. And it's taken a while to recognize when those cool things are happening and that it was a result of letting go and not, obsessing. that was fun. But it's been from the times that I don't try and control things that I've really had some cool things develop. And not even necessarily things that are going to lead to, vast riches or professional success, but just really like cool experiences to have in my memory stash.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking of one particular experience of letting go in a pretty severe way that I want to get into in a second. So I'm curious for you to tell people, and maybe me in more detail even than I maybe already know, what some of those things were that happened. So before we get into that experience that you had the past few months, I want to bring in this idea of achievement too, because I feel like this need for control that, again, you share with many, I mean, this is a human thing, frankly.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do as well with the feeling of needing to do all the time and be busy and be active and to be achieving. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with achievement and productivity and how that's been historically in your life.
Yes. So growing up, I was surrounded all of the time with friends and family members who were busy or high achieving. And I was also a very competitive child, very competitive child. So I always wanted to be somebody who is seen to be achieving something. I did not like to look like I wasn't, and this is paying probably a bit more attention to what other people were doing than what I was doing, but just to always be, getting an A, to be seen as, the smartest in the room, or at least, to look like somebody who has everything together. That, because like I would be praised for that, because it is praised in our culture, to have in society, is especially for little kids, to have the person who's getting gold stars and hundreds be this like golden idol that every other little kid should be looking up to, and to never praise the kid who gets a grade below a certain number. Like I was very aware of that.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of kids are very aware of that too, even subconsciously. So like getting into high school, I went to a very small school that was kind of a college preparatory school. And the people that I surrounded myself with were also kind of perfectionists, or at least wanted to do very well. And I mean, I appreciated that because I like to be pushed, but I realized I didn't, and I realize now, like, I am very motivated internally. I do not need a lot of external motivation. Like, I am not the kind of person that is doing workout classes with 30 other people and have an instructor, like spin instructors yelling at you or anything. Like, I do not need that. I don't like it at all. But anyway, like about achievement, as far as tying control in with achievement, it's very difficult to be a high achiever on life, if that makes sense, because it's not something that you can really, there is no gold star that life is going to give you. And in fact, everybody can get a gold star and everybody can not get a gold star, and you can get a purple star or a blue star. Like, there's not like this ideal place of, wow, I won, because there's not like a finish line. And that was very difficult because, coming into college and trying to figure out what am I doing with my life, is there's not like my life is organized into semesters right now, but I know that it's about to not be. And trying to come to grips with, okay, maybe achieving, like high achieving on a bunch of random papers for these classes I need to take isn't the goal of my life, was a very rude awakening. Because that is the goal of your life all the way up until you get into college, essentially. I mean, if you're going to med school or whatever, then I'm sure that's still your life right now. But for the rest of us, that can be really tricky.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, as you're talking through this, I'm thinking that this happens to all kids. Of course, everyone gets this question, but especially the high achieving kids, the ones who are academically inclined and who are really going after all the, the accolades and the high grades and all of that. They in particular get that question a lot of, well, what are you going to do after you graduate? Or what do you want to do as a career? And they are really expected to have an answer, a very clear plan. And that's kind of what I was hearing you saying too, is you are very aware of that deadline coming up. And it feels like I'm supposed to have a plan. People are asking me about this. I'm asking myself about this. So what happens when I don't have 18 steps ahead all planned out, because I'm kind of going into the great unknown?
Right. Or when you make a conscious choice to not buy into the work grind or hustle culture.
Yep.
Oh, nothing grinds my gears more. I'm just, it's so frustrating, because it's so, for me at least, I live in a college town and it is so prevalent. You are constantly surrounded by all of these people who are doing these amazing things. And it can so easily feel like, okay, either I'm not doing enough, what I'm doing right now, there should be more, or it should be more meaningful, or there's something wrong with me for not being able to produce as much as they are and not have a mental breakdown.
Yes.
And that has been like understanding that and learning to be okay with my level of production, like what I can like actually feel comfortable doing. And I know myself really well. So I know, okay, I can work for this amount of hours today, but that's going to be it before my brain turns to mush and I don't want to do anything else. And instead of like forcing myself to pull all-nighters, I do not pull all-nighters. I'm not that studier. I literally cannot think after like 11 p.m. So that just doesn't happen. But instead of making myself do that to try and keep up with everybody else and their busyness and their achievement, it's been quite an enlightenment experience to not do it,
Yeah, to not give
and to
into
recognize that I work. Yeah, and to recognize that I work in a different way. Some people thrive in group study settings, but I don't. Like, I like background noise, but I do not like to have 15 of my closest friends surrounding me at a table and us trying to study. Like, that just doesn't work for me. And noticing that and accepting it and not giving in to that when other people are like, well, you should be doing that because that's what's, like the social norm. It can be really hard, but in the end, I mean, it's your path. And it's like, what do you want your path to look like?
Yes.
Do you want it to look like somebody else's, or do you want to look like your own? Like, you get one. So,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think that you're hitting on probably two of the biggest messages, actually, that come from our achievement culture. One is what you said before, I'm not doing enough. That's a huge one. As a coach, I hear that all the time. I feel that sometimes. I'm not doing enough. And the second one is, I'm not doing the right things. So even if you're doing all kinds of things, you're like, I'm not studying in the right way, or I'm not pulling all-nighters, which means I'm probably doing it wrong, or right. We have this whole idea of how much you have to work, which is essentially until you drop, and what you have to be doing to be able to achieve the right things, to be on pace with your peers, or to keep up, or to not fall behind in life. And it's completely exhausting. If you really buy into it, it's so exhausting. This achievement mentality is not sustainable at all. And it sounds like you've really recognized that on a deep personal level, that this is not sustainable for you. It feels terrible.
No. Yeah. And it's funny stepping back now, because every single person I can see like functions in a different way. And when we try and group people into this mold is like the highest level of productivity that you can get. It's the highest level of achievement. No one, maybe one person or two people are going to fit into that mold.
Right.
But every single person works in a different way. And once you recognize the way that you work, you become more productive. So it's really just about recognizing, hey, I can't, work straight or study straight or be going from place to place to place, doing all of these different, part-time jobs and research and club organizations and who knows what, because I literally can barely stay awake throughout my day,
Yep.
But I see it all the time. I see it every day. I see and people brag about how tired they are. That's become a really big thing. Like, I was up until here. Like, I was up until then doing X, Y, Z. And I'm like, but why? You didn't need to be. And it's not good for your health. So I don't know why you're bragging about it.
And I'm also thinking that the need to overachieve and to be super productive, which is, again, trying to control the circumstances to get the successful outcome that you think is going to be at the end of all of that work. That's all coming from, really anxiety of not doing enough, right? I'm not doing enough. So they're pushing themselves to the point of complete exhaustion and then bragging about it.
Right.
But then the flip side of that is when you are trying to do all the things and juggle all of the pieces and be in control of every step along the way, that is also completely anxiety inducing.
I was about to say they are branches on the same tree. They don't really exist, at least for me, that it hasn't really existed one without the other. And especially as far as control goes, because I knew that several times I've kind of tested my limits as far as how much I can be doing before my mental and or physical health starts to suffer, or social life or whatever. Some part of me has to kind of wither for this part of it to grow. And every time I think that I am in control and I'm like, okay, I have my daily planner out and I have these things listed to do and whatever, but knowing your schedule really well and filling it with a ton of things, especially things that don't bring you joy or fulfillment or kind of nurture your inner life tree or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're technically in control, you lose control of something.
Yeah.
Like within yourself. So
so true.
You can't win either way.
You can't.
if you're going down that route. Yeah.
You can't if you're trying to avoid anxiety through control. You're going to just create more anxiety. So it can't be the answer. I have yet to see that work for anyone.
Me either.
So, okay, you've been trying something else. You've been testing out a new theory. In particular, this past summer, you tested out a new theory. And you made, I would say this is a pretty radical choice, again, in our achievement-based culture, especially in academia, where everything is, well, what's the next internship and what's the next class and it's always what's the next thing? What are you going to pile onto your schedule?
Mm-hmm.
And you decided, I am not going to do that this summer. I'm not going to get any kind of special internship. I'm not going to take a bunch of summer classes. I just want to actually enjoy my summer, kind of jump off of that hamster wheel for a little bit and give yourself some space.
Yes.
So I'm sure you were really scared to do that. I know you were really scared to do that.
Oh, I was terrified.
So tell me,
I did not want to do it.
Well, yeah. What were some of your fears about actually taking a summer off of this productivity hamster wheel? And how was the actual experience?
Okay, so a little glimpse into my pre-summer. I did not actually come up with this idea. My dad came up with this idea because he was getting very tired of me having anxious phone calls every now and then, like very often, about everything that was going on. I was so stressed out. And I generally get stressed during school because I do like to perform well in my classes and all this jazz. But so he kind of told me, so I also am in the very fortunate position to be graduating early. So I do have a lot of wiggle room as far as classes go. I didn't need to take any over the summer. I had planned on taking some because why not? What else would I, that was my mentality of, well, I need to be doing something, clearly.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And if I wasn't going to be doing that, then I needed to have an internship that looked, prestigious and showed development and character strength and all of these great things that don't really matter, but on a resume. But the thing was, when he said that, I was kind of, at first, like, my answer was no. Like a staunch no. There's no way I'm going to, essentially what I was considering to be wasting 3 months to not do anything. Like, you have to be crazy. There's no way, especially because that was my summer between my second and third year. And because I'm graduating early, it's just it's a little bit more stressful. But generally right now, this is like prime internship season. Everybody is either studying abroad or working somewhere or developing, cancer curing technology. It feels like,
Right.
So that was a very, very, very honestly stressful thing to come to terms with. And in fact, I really didn't. I kind of half did. I said, yeah, okay, sure. But I had still registered for 2 online classes. And I was like, making my case to my dad, saying why I should take these. And I was
You're like rationalizing for more work.
I was like, oh, it's a historical art class, Dad, and it's online. It won't be stressful at all. It's fine, which is ridiculous. But anyway, so I went, my semesters end like the first second week of May. And I was very lucky I have already studied abroad. I did that after my first year, which was also a situation where I just kind of let go. I realized that the other day too. I really signed up for that like 2 weeks before the deadline, and I just kind of hit submit, and I was like, we're going, that's fine. But anyway, I was very fortunate to travel again over in Europe and in a couple different countries with 2 friends for a couple weeks. And it was great because this time I didn't have any classes. I didn't have any pressing agenda. I didn't have anything I needed to be checking my phone for all the time or emails to be looking at. And then when I got home, I was planning on taking those 2 classes online that I don't think that my dad knew that I'd signed up for. But
like sneaking around,
literally sneaking around to take classes. That's how far in I was. But throughout the course of me traveling, as I've already learned before, I was just done. I had a very burned out mentality. I'd taken a lot of hours the semester before and worked really hard, and I was just so tired. I really can't describe it as anything other than that. I was so tired. And like, I love learning. It's one of my, oh my gosh, if I'm ever not learning, I just don't feel like myself. I want to be learning. That could be about anything. It could be about, how to make the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. I really don't care, but it has to be something. And that just felt to me, I think part of the problem was I felt like I was giving up. I felt like I wasn't doing what I need to be doing. And by just kind of letting myself not be taking classes, which, side note, I hadn't done literally since kindergarten. Okay. Like there wasn't really a period where that wasn't happening. I felt like I was going to lose my mojo. I was going to lose what made me me. And that was really, I think that was what I was really struggling with before I went on my like very lovely vacation. Like while I was there, I realized I exist outside of school. I am not school. And that does not need to be my number one thing, which has also been a fun thing to realize too, as I'm job searching and talking to people in the professional world, is how little they care about what classes you took and what your GPA is, which is the most frightening thing because nobody tells you that. Nobody tells you that when you're coming into college. And so I feel like a lot of people just kind of have the same attitude as they do in high school, which is your grades are everything. So you have to put everything into them, you know? But like, that's not the point of everything. But anyway, so I came home and got a part-time job that didn't add some amazing achievement to my resume. It was just a normal, average part-time job, making coffee in my hometown. And for the summer months, nothing crazy. And I just existed. And I made an active choice almost every day to not go and do hours of research into what can I possibly do with my future? What can I do with my degree? What do normal people do with this degree? And what are the risks and benefits of these other careers? And all of that, I didn't do it. And I didn't do it for like 3 months, which is a long time. You know, if I had an interest in something, if I met somebody and talked with them and they were sharing something about their life and I thought it was interesting or something that I might want to do, sure, I went and looked it up or asked around or listened to a TED Talk, but it wasn't this overwhelming, anxious, I need to know now.
Yeah,
feeling.
It was pure curiosity. It wasn't anxiety fueled.
Yes.
It wasn't needing to control the next 20 steps of your life fueled.
Exactly. And
did you have to practically pry yourself away from the computer on some days?
Oh yeah.
To not do that?
Yeah, I think we talked a couple times towards the end of my semester just about, okay, this is a healthy way to look into things and this is a not healthy way. And a lot of the times I was doing it in a not healthy way, which has been fun to realize now because I can catch myself like kind of going down the rabbit hole of, oh, well, that looks amazing. And, oh, I can't do that. Or, oh, whatever, like while I'm looking at things, because as a planner and as somebody who wants to be in control and organized in my life and have a 5-year plan and follow it to a T, that's just not realistic. And I thought it was realistic. I thought I was being incredibly like ahead of my time and like, oh yes, like look at you, you have everything together, but it's really not, because if you try and do that, you're going to cut out something. You know, it's just like what we were saying before about achievement anxiety and being too busy. It's the same thing when you try and like organize your life and control it and put it in this nice little box. Like something will come and destroy the box. I don't care what it is.
Every time.
It could come from anywhere, any person, whatever. You might meet somebody and they might destroy your box and you're going to have to adapt. And I don't know, I felt like that was what I did. I literally for an entire summer didn't do any kind of work for anybody, like academic work or research or anything for anybody other than myself, which was incredibly powerful because I'm a French major and I study French, and I was reading French books for me. Like I was reading nonfiction. I read Harry Potter, like for me, not for my class. And it did wonders. It did wonders for my interest in the subject, which wasn't dead by any means, but still, like, that was exciting. And giving myself that space, I've really honestly seen the fruits of that emerging now more so than ever, which is really funny because it's been a few months since the end of summer in terms of my creativity and, you know, following my passions and not being as bothered by what everybody else is doing. That's been great. There have just been a lot of, you know, come to clarity moments that happened way after that I was expecting to happen in the middle of summer and really didn't until I kind of came back into the, like, my version of the working world with all of these kind of, I guess, new tools that I didn't previously realize I could have in my tool belt.
Well, I love this because there's like a ripple effect that you're describing. So the actual experience of slowing down and very actively, very intentionally releasing the need to achieve, the need to be productive, the need to control and figure out what's going to happen next. That in and of itself created some space for you where you got to travel and you got to just breathe and recover a bit from some burnout. But then there was this longer term effect. So what I imagine you were probably, and you've pretty much said this, that it was scary. Like, what's going to happen if I jump off of this treadmill and I should be getting, quote unquote, should be getting a prestigious internship, or I should be taking a bunch of classes, or I should be continuing to achieve. And it was so scary to consider letting go of that for months. And you even, I think what you even said was, I was afraid I was going to lose my mojo. Like I was going to lose a part of
my motivation.
Yeah.
And I was just going to like collapse on the floor and not get up. I was really worried about that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, well, if I've always been going, and that feels like where my motivation comes from, what happens when I don't do that? Am I going to become a not motivated person? Am I going to become lazy? Am I going to become someone who loses their ambition or loses their creativity? What's going to happen? It's terrifying. And here I'm hearing you say that there's actually all of these really powerful, unexpected things that happened, not even just during that summer, but in the months beyond. And who knows? I mean, there could be more even beyond this conversation. I hope so. But what are some of the things that happened in your life that maybe you expected, maybe you did not expect, that were a direct result of that slowing down period and the releasing control for a little while?
Yeah. So a lot of things. Formed new relationships with people, strengthened relationships with people that I realized I had kind of been just coasting, and I could have been going deeper and establishing more of a meaningful relationship with people in my life. In terms of creativity, I write when I feel the inspiration to write. And for a couple years post various AP classes and life, I wasn't really writing at all. And it felt really frustrating because I felt like I had a lot to say, but I just either didn't have the energy to, or I had other things I needed to be doing, or et cetera, et cetera. And I had applied to join this organization on my school's campus that's a positive press publication, and it's really creative, and the other people that are in it are so amazing and inspirational in their own unique ways. And I was able to write, and I have been able to write both for that and for myself more frequently than I think I have written in the past 3 or 4 years. And things that I'm proud of too, not like academic writing that has a purpose and whatever, but just feeling like I can put a bit of my soul onto a page. has been really great. In terms of classes and life stuff, I had a very come to myself moment. Well, a few days. It was a period of a few days where I just had I had gained a bit of emotional freedom, and I realized I need to sit with myself. Like I've been putting in the work, quotes around work, for the last 5 to 6 months, actively choosing not to be in control, and just kind of sitting with that and enjoying life as it comes. And I realized like throughout that, while that period of time was great, I also hadn't really been listening to my intuition. And I know that we've talked about this before, but for my personality type and for the way that my brain operates, I'm incredibly rational and analytical. And a lot of the times that can drown out any kind of intuition I have. Like if I'm not in like a bad way, but in okay, well, we're going to need to do this for this reason, even though you might not want to.
Yep. Oh, so common. Yep.
Which is, yes. And gosh, can you imagine the world if people didn't do that? Oh my gosh, it'd be crazy.
I know, if they didn't talk themselves out of their intuition, logic themselves out of it. Yep.
And so I really sat with myself and listened and paid attention to things that I was interested in and why I was interested in them. I was asking a lot of whys and thinking and doing a lot of introspection around, okay, what do I want? What do I actually want? Not what do I think other people want from me or would look really good or anything to do with anybody other than myself, which sounds like it would be selfish, but it's really not, because then you can go and give that to others, which I feel like you and Rachel have talked about a bit before. But anyway, I just kind of had a very clear experience, and kind of forged this very, very loose idea of what I would like for the next couple years of my life to look like, which has been a huge step, a huge step, which might not sound like a huge step to a lot of people, but I am such a planner. I wish that I could just, visualize like my organizational tendencies to everybody who listens to this, but just imagine like an outline of every single thing that you need to do for the next 2 years of your life. And like, that's what I was trying to come up with in many different
Not
ways.
Overwhelming at all. Not in the slightest.
Not overwhelming at all. No, not at all. But it's funny because I kind of like realized this and I sat with it and I felt so peaceful, which is not an emotion that I experience on a day-to-day basis. I wish that I did, but I just don't. And it was I just felt like, okay, I am okay with this very loose idea of a plan. It's not even a plan because there's literally so many different ways that things could develop. But I have an idea of what I want. And I'm in a space now where I'm open to the universe throwing something new into my plan, quotes around plan, and going with it, which has been very different, historically speaking, from how I've operated before. And it's not occupying my brain space anymore, which has been such a relief, because now and I imagine it's kind of like anything that's causing anxiety, you can still go out and do everything that you do in your normal life, but it's always there, like in the back of your mind. And so you're not really there. I mean, you are, but mentally speaking, you're not really fully there. And that can be really detrimental in a lot of ways that we don't pay attention to. And this was taking up such a large chunk of my brain, that existential, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And I still don't know what I'm doing, but I have several things that I'm really interested in and passionate about and want to develop. I have gained this appreciation for the unknown. I won't say that I love it or that I'm thrilled to go through it, because I am not, but like I recognize that it can be a very good thing. And therefore I'm not actively running from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So already some of the side effects, some of the side effects of slowing down and releasing that need to control all of the circumstances or have all the answers, deepen some of your relationships, and opened up your creativity in writing and other forms. It gave you that sense of just peace and clarity and a path forward. It made you feel more connected to your intuition and just solid and content to follow that intuition wherever it leads, even if you don't exactly know all of the facets of how that's going to look.
And even if it's not the normal path either, which can be honestly, very difficult to try and explain to people who don't have the same idea about what you should be doing with your life, or who feel the need to insert opinions into places they don't need to be. But that's been a really big thing too, is going through that and spending a lot of time kind of with who I am. And I'm an introvert, so I already spend a lot of time with myself. I like myself. You have to if you're an introvert. But it's not the same as sitting with yourself and being willing to also share your authenticity, because you're not ashamed of it. That's been a big thing. Like that was really tough freshman year, not wanting to do certain things that everybody else wanted to do, because I have a very strong will, and I do not like I don't like people telling me what to do, if you couldn't get that from this whole thing. But I wouldn't do it, but I would feel guilty about not wanting to do things, that everybody else was doing.
Right. And we also know you're just an old soul. And so an old soul trying to feel like you want to do all the things that college kids are wanting to do. You're just like, oh, sounds exhausting. Yeah,
exactly.
So there's that added level of, man, now I should be doing this. Now I should be doing I should be wanting to do more of these things. Like it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. But like, I don't know, these past, the most recent experience of all of this lets me find more joy in what I was already finding joy in before.
Yeah.
Like a deeper sense of joy.
So much about what other people are thinking.
Exactly.
Just accept yourself for, okay, this is who I am. This is what I enjoy. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So we'll add self-acceptance to the mix. I mean, this list is just getting...
it just goes on.
Just pretty freaking amazing. I think you're giving a pretty compelling reason for people to let go of this whole control freak. I honestly think all of us, I think human beings are secret control freaks. Some of us are less secret than others, but to some degree, we all want control. And so I think what you're describing is working out this balance of how to keep that inner secret control freak in check without what you were afraid was going to happen, was just completely becoming apathetic and losing your motivation or not having any plans or any goals. And so what I love was that as you're checking more in with intuition than with anxiety-fueled control measures, you are getting some next steps unfolding, but they're not, and here's the 27 details. It's broad strokes. It's general directions. It feels good. It's open to change. It's flexible. And so that tells me you're very clearly learning that balance of not going to the extreme of control, but also not slipping into the opposite extreme of, okay, I'm not going to make any plans, or I'm not going to think about this at all. I'm just going to let whatever happens, which can become apathy.
Right.
So you've given some really good examples of as you've been striking that balance. But in terms of maintaining that balance, like how are you going about that? Like, what are you learning about yourself I'm sure there's moments when you find yourself slipping back into control mode. How do you tell when that's happening? Like, this is going to be an ongoing self-awareness practice for all of us, is to not go too far in either direction. So I'm just curious how you've been navigating that recently.
Yes. So I'm still constantly figuring out how to not go to extremes. Generally speaking, I get very intense bouts of passion and interest into things. And then on the other end, I can get have very low lows, if that makes sense. But they have balanced out, because I realized that me, leaning into the control and the anxiety around that and worrying and trying so hard to make everything perfect and pretty it can turn so quickly and so easily into an obsession. And trying to use the past to predict the future is not always a good idea, because it really limits what the future can hold. There's nothing wrong with drawing from past experiences and past relationships and anything like that to gain a bit of wisdom. But when you start assuming that things are going to look exactly how they looked in the past, then nothing good is going to come from that. And part of that, of me figuring out how to balance everything, has honestly come from just going through it and then getting to the other side and then realizing, oh, that wasn't a good way to handle things, because you don't really know until you try. But really, it's, for me personally, it's been a feeling, honestly, just feeling all of the emotions, not trying to block off one or control this one or anything like that, but to really just kind of sit through it and know, okay, we're having a bad day, we're freaking out, it's going to pass. And it's going to pass in literally maybe 3 hours. So just hold on,
Yes.
do things that bring me joy, that I know without a doubt, like, even if it's just like 30 seconds of joy or 30 seconds of happiness or peace or any non-negative emotion, however small it might be. And for me, a lot of that might be exercising or doing yoga or getting a really great cappuccino and pastry at a local coffee shop, or even doing things on like a very small non-achievement based to-do list, like cleaning the dishes or doing laundry, things that like you should be doing anyway in your life. So it's not really an achievement if you do them, but you still feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
Those have been really big helps, but also I kind of talked about this a little bit, but kind of tapping into anything creative. So for me, that's writing. But that can also be painting or drawing or doodling or graphic design, anything that kind of takes you out of your headspace a little bit.
Yeah.
And kind of does things where there is nothing to control, because you can't really control creativity. And whenever you try, it just stops, because it's like, I'm not doing that. Yeah. So anything like that has been a really great, when I tell that I'm kind of slipping back into control mode. And I can tell from my routines, like I can get very kind of stuck in a routine. And that can become very obvious if I'm like getting irritated because I'm spending an hour in this place more than I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I can be like, oh, why am I getting irritated about that? It's really not that big of a deal. But that can be a really big tell, is just being able to tap into your emotional state and recognize, okay, I am in this place. And I know that we've talked about this a little bit, but just taking a very little itty bitty baby step just to like one nicer place.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, okay, well, I'm going to cheer up right now and just be the best version of me for the rest of the day because I can't be in this state. But just saying like, okay, I am struggling right now. I'm going to do one very little small thing for me and just go from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love this. You were just giving you're just dropping wisdom bombs all over the place. Yes. So first of all, control. You can tell you're getting into control mode when you feel very rigid. This is describes you, but this is good. This is describing control. So people are going to relate to this, I'm sure. You start to feel very rigid and very stuck in your routines and in your schedules. And you just get irritated, right? Like on the littlest things that'll take you off track. Those are your indicators. They're not a problem, but it's a red flag. And I think you said there's plenty of times where you might realize that after the fact. And that's totally normal. I feel like that's a part of changing any major pattern in your life is for a while you start recognizing it later on. You're like, oh, the other day when I was getting really annoyed with my friend, I was probably just stuck in control mode. Okay, well, I see it after the fact now. And eventually you'll get closer and closer to recognizing it in real time as it's happening. But as you are becoming more aware of those red flags and those patterns, you've started to develop ways of very consciously shifting yourself out of that more anxiety-ridden, control-oriented place because you know that that's not serving you and it just feels terrible. And you can do things that you can't control, like your emotions. When you just let them flow, you got to not be a control freak about your emotions.
Exactly.
You got to try things like creativity and just intuitive, moments where you just tap into your intuition, where you go for a walk and there's no real purpose to it, or you create art, or you
That's a good way to say it. Doing things that don't have this overriding purpose.
Yeah, just purposeless things that evoke creativity, that evoke your intuition, just shifts you out of that overly analytical headspace and allows you for a little while to balance back out. I love that. Wow. Okay. Well, I am so impressed by just the huge shifts that you have been making over a matter of months. I know people who have been struggling with this for lifetimes that are still figuring out things that you have now figured out in college.
And still figuring out.
Sure. Yeah. This is the long-term journey. But what you're figuring out now is going to be so amazingly helpful throughout the rest of your life. And I'm so glad that you're able to share these huge realizations that you've been having. And I'm glad that you've tested this out for people and proven the things that you're scared of when you release control and when you release the need to constantly be productive and be in achievement mode, the things you're afraid of not only won't happen, but usually the opposite will happen.
Yeah. And it might take some time.
Yes.
It might not happen the next day or the next week. You might, if you've been going so hard for so long, your body is probably going to not want to get off the couch for a little bit, but in the long run, you don't lose that. You don't lose what's innate in you.
Yeah.
Just because you're not producing a material good. We're not like robots. So
no, we're not. We're not. Stop trying to be everyone.
Yes, please.
Well, there's one more thing this is one more thing that you ended up attracting.
Yes.
Through your releasing of figuring out all the plans, which was an amazing business partner and an amazing business concept. And you teased this before when you said that you have been moving more into this entrepreneurial space. So I just love this idea so much. I love the concept behind your business. I would love if you're open to sharing a little of the overarching idea, maybe even like the super quick overview story of how you found your business partner, and just share that with everyone to close this out, because that's just been maybe one of the coolest side effects of all of
I agree.
This.
Probably one of, if not the most amazing side effect of this. So an old friend from high school, and honestly, we were aware of each other in middle school. We never really connected. We were just, I don't know, taking different classes or different paths. I don't know what it was, but always kind of admired each other from afar. And we reconnected this summer, and her name is Olivia, and we decided to co-found a personalized travel itinerary planning business together, which has been just such a fun experience, like truly fun. A lot of work, don't get me wrong, but it brings out a spark in me that I really didn't know I would want to have as much as I do and enjoy doing. But so our business is called Dear Curiosity, and both of us have
such a great name.
Thank you. Both of us have studied abroad and traveled to many different countries and as well as many different states. I think between the two of us, we have almost like half the country covered, but lots of travel experience in both in different ways and similar ways, which has been really cool because we complement each other really well on that. But kind of our mission statement behind the company and why we are business and why we wanted to start this was we really wanted to cultivate human connection. I think both of us, it's very easy to see in the current climate of the world, just all of these divisions popping up and these extreme opinions and people just kind of separating themselves and living in isolation, and which is a shame because there's never been a time in human history that we can so easily connect with somebody that lives on the other side of the world or even like 3 neighborhoods down. Like it's so easy today. But anyway, we wanted to cultivate human connection specifically through guiding people to mindfully travel and mindfully explore new perspectives and new cities and countries and cultures, because I think that that's something that's anything that we can bring some kind of intentionality to completely changes the way that you experience something. And we both agreed that people can be it can be really intimidating to travel, even if it's just to another state, especially if you've never done it before. And if you do something like that and you step out of your comfort zone and you have a quote unquote bad experience, it might not have needed to be one. You know, like a lot of the times there's a lot of misinformation spread, and, you know, a Pinterest page of the top 8 things to do in London doesn't really take into account who you are as a person, the kind of things that you enjoy doing, what your personality type is, who you're traveling with, what your budget is, all of these different things that can play into how you experience your adventure. And both of us had such an amazing time creating and crafting our own adventures throughout the last few years that we really just wanted to bring it to somebody else. So yeah,
Oh, I love this mindful, intentional, personalized travel planning. I mean, that's just amazing. I love it so much. Okay, well, remind people where they can find you online to learn more about this.
So you can find us on Instagram at Dear Curiosity, or it might be Hello Dear Curiosity.
I'll have it all linked up.
Yeah, we will have the website is coming soon. I think that we were shooting for November 1st, but it's probably going to be in that first week of November. But you can contact us through Instagram and we will respond rapidly. So
perfect. Well, hopefully it's up by the time this episode goes live. If not, you guys check back, follow their Instagram, because this is a really, really cool, unique business concept. And I think a lot of people who are into the Clarity on Fire world are going to be into mindful everything, including travel.
I hope so.
I just wanted you to share that because I am very much in support and very excited about how this is going to grow. And thank you for just sharing so candidly and so honestly your journey over the past year or so, a journey that I think a lot of people are currently in parallel going through with you. So thank you again. I would love for everyone to, share their thoughts with Caela, and we'd love to both.
Please do. Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation.
We'd love to continue this conversation with everyone who's listening. So thank you again, Caela. This was so great.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
I don't believe that Caela and Liv, her business partner, have a website yet, but you can go follow them on Instagram at dear.curiosity.
Well, and their website is going to be released anytime now. So if
It could be. Okay.
if it's up by the time this goes live, I will put that in the episode description.
Well, either way, they have in their Instagram bio, they have like a thing where you can subscribe to them. And so when the website goes live, then they would have your info. But
Perfect.
You can get some cheap flight tips or that's what they're hawking right now, which I think sounds great.
Yeah.
I would definitely, I'm going to ask her for help the next time I have to fly somewhere because I'm a befuddled old woman.
And they're all about mindfully traveling.
I love that. There's so many also just cute pictures of them and like traveling, and it just makes you feel like you've stepped into another world. So go follow them on Instagram. I'm very in awe. And it's funny, when you and I went to get coach trained, we were only a couple years older than Caela.
Yep.
And people always were like, oh my God, I'm so impressed with you. You're so young. And I'd be like, get off me. I'm just like me. And now I'm doing the same thing to her. So I have
karma, man.
But it really is just like,
it is impressive.
it's totally complimentary.
Yes.
That is. It just being a self-aware person at that young of an age is something we all wish we'd had, even if we had it only a few years later. I'm like jealous that she had it at that age.
I know.
So anyway, I think it's really cool. And I'm glad that she came on. Okay. We'll see you on Tuesday.
With some kind of a blog.
I think it's got to be from me.
Yeah.
I think it'll be new. I actually do have something percolating.
Okay. Well, we'll see.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.